Greetings fellow viewers. Welcome to another game memory. This is Space Marines 2 Warhammer 40,000 recapped. It's the 41st millennium, in the age of the Dark Imperium and after the resurrection of Roboute Guilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines. The worlds are again under the threat of the monstrous alien species known as the Tyranids of the Hive Fleet Leviathan. Tyranids' assault on the jungle world of Kadaku and the Imperial Residius system marks the beginning of what will be the Fourth Tyrannic War. In the beginning we are shown a group of Space Marines who are later introduced as the Black Shields of the Deathwatch descending on the planet of Kadaku in the Corvus Blackstar gunship. They, comprised of the Brother Ulfar of the Space Wolves, Brother Kelstros of the Blood Angels, Brother Burin of the Black Templars, Brother Darius of the Dark Angels and the protagonist Demetrian Titus of the Ultramarines who now goes by the name Nihilus.
They make up the Kill Team Primus whose mission is to deliver a deadly virus payload to the heart of the Tyranid swarm while supporting the 8th Cadian Astra Militarum forces. But when their Corvus Blackstar is shot down by winged Tyranids, the kill team had to fight their way through the jungle, struggling to bring the virus bomb to the orbital launcher. Eventually Titus, the only one to reach the orbital launcher, successfully launches the virus bomb to the atmosphere. However, he ends up having to stand alone against an entire horde of Tyranids. He makes his final stand and become mortally wounded by a Tyranid Carnifex, and as it felt like this was his final moments, a strike force from the Ultramarines under the guidance of the Chief Librarian Varo Tigurius, who sensed Titus' soul sign within the warp, recovers Titus and his dead brothers from the ravaged world. Titus was taken aboard the battle barge Resilient. Tigurius and Marnius Calgar decreed that he be given the dangerous Rubicon Primaris surgery. By crossing this threshold, Titus emerged as a Primaris Marine, rebuilt for even greater endurance and strength. When he awoke, he found himself granted a second chance, honored with the rank of lieutenant in the 2nd Company under Captain Sebastus Akran, a Marine who had come of age during Titus' absence. Though his history as a Black Shield and his service as Nihilus would remain obscured, Titus accepted this chance at redemption, determined to serve his chapter once more.
What is your pledge?
My pledge is eternal service.
After a successful Rubicon Primaris, Titus is given command of the squad comprising of Sergeant Gadriel and Brother Chiron. As part of Titus's first mission as a Primaris Space Marine, they are assigned to assist the Astra Militarum in the ongoing battle for Kadaku. Their mission is to help secure the orbital defense cannons and assist in the evacuation of Kadaku's civilian population, including the Archmagos Nozick Beta 12. Fighting through waves of Tyranid bioforms, Titus and his squad manage to reclaim the cannons, allowing Imperial forces to destroy a Hive ship. However, the mission takes a dark turn as Archmagos Nozick Beta 12's transport crashes, and upon surveying the wreckage, the Ultramarines discover Nozick slain, but not by the Tyranids but by the forces of chaos. Before they leave the area, Titus and his team encounters a squad of Ultramarines transporting a mysterious object from the wreckage which causes Titus to lose consciousness. This object was an artifact of the Project Aurora, and Titus was all too familiar with this dreadful feeling since he had felt it before during the liberation of Graia. Pursuing answers, Titus learns that Project Aurora was an attempt by the Mechanicus to construct a warp-based weapon that could banish chaos-warped beings. To his horror, the weapon's power source was the very chaos artifact he'd fought over a century ago on Graia. Alarmed, he attempts to warn Akran, but is rebuffed as the project was rumored to be sanctioned by Roboute Guilliman himself. Now with Nozick slain, the only one that can continue the work on the project is his apprentice, Morius Leus. Determined to prevent the spread of the weapon's corrupting influence, Titus leads his squad to rescue Nozick's apprentice, Morius Louise, from an Adeptus Mechanicus facility on the Hive world of Avarax. They fight their way past the heretic Astartes of the Thousand Suns Traitor Legion, who, not surprisingly, also sought control of the Project Aurora. After rescuing Louise and on their way back, Leus unwittingly reveals the true identity of Titus as the former captain of the Ultramarines 2nd Company, his alleged past. This worsens the already brittle relationship between Titus and his squadmates, especially Gadriel's, given the fact they were already suspicious about his past and his encounters with the forces of chaos in Graia, and this ends up turning into resentment.
Upon learning about the severity of the weapon been designed, Titus presses for immediate contact with Chapter Master Marnius Calgar, intending to reveal the ominous truth about Project Aurora. Akran, however, dismisses this notion due to the astropathic relay being besieged by Tyranids and cloaked in dark sorcery cast by Chaos forces, blocking all attempts to transmit messages off-world. Titus, undeterred, proposes a plan to take back the relay. He and his squad would make a direct assault on the relay, while other Second Company squads would focus on eliminating the Tyranid Hive Tyrant responsible for directing the swarm and suppress the jamming spells cast by the forces of chaos. Seeing the merit in this, Akran gave his approval. As Titus and his battle brothers fights their way toward the relay station, the Tyranid bioforms they encounter unexpectedly fall into disarray or turn feral, now that they are severed from their hive-mind connection after the Ultramarines eliminate the Hive Tyrant. Once they gain access to the astropathic relay, Titus meets with astropath Naoma, who agrees to send his critical message to Calgar. But as she begins to transmit, Naoma's demeanor abruptly shifts. She accuses Titus of treachery, claiming he intends to lure Calgar into a trap. This accusation stirs Gadriel's mistrust, prompting him to turn his weapon on Titus. The standoff is broken when Chiron, recognizing Naoma's words as lies seeded by chaos, strikes her down. Her death unleashes a blast of warp energy revealing the identity of the one who was possessing the astropath, the Thousand Suns sorcerer Lord Amura, cloaked in a sorceress disguise.
Gracefully you dance.
Amura taunts Titus and then flees, leaving the Ultramarines to regroup. After regrouping, Titus reports the disturbing encounter to Captain Akran, who informs him that numerous Thousand Suns forces had infiltrated the Residius system. Their main focus appears to be the cemetery world of Demirium, where Project Aurora had been relocated and where Louise was preparing to activate the weapon. As the Ultramarines readied themselves for the assault on Demirium, Titus and Gadriel reconcile their differences. Gadriel, finally convinced of Titus' unwavering loyalty to the Emperor, extends his trust. Upon landing and battling through the Thousand Suns forces entrenched on the cemetery world, the Ultramarines reaches the site of Project Aurora, only to uncover a shocking truth: Demirium was, in fact, a Necron tomb world. Amidst this revelation, the Ultramarines finds Archmagos Louise, who explains the nature of Project Aurora. By combining advanced Necron and Adeptus Mechanicus technologies, using a Chaos-tainted artifact as the energy core, the weapon is designed to banish those corrupted by Chaos into the warp. Initially intended to affect only the Residius system, the weapon's ultimate potential was to extend its reach across the galaxy, promising the Imperium an unprecedented triumph over Chaos. However, Sorcerer Lord Amura, determined to halt the weapon's activation, appeared and was seemingly banished to the Immaterium by Project Aurora's power. This reprieve was short-lived, for Amura had merely used this opportunity to regain control. Returning from the warp, he revealed his hand. It had been his influence all along that had guided the Adeptus Mechanicus tech priests into constructing and pursuing the project. Amura then strikes down Louise and takes the Chaos artifact for his own dark purposes, abandoning the Ultramarines to face the consequences of his manipulation. Upon returning to the surface of Demirium, Titus and his squad finds that a Necron obelisk had emerged, creating a massive warp rift across the landscape. This rift enabled Sorcerer Lord Amura to summon even more Thousand Suns forces and a terrifying Lord of Change to the cemetery world. The squad pushes through relentless waves of Thousand Suns, nearly falling to the enemy's might until Marnius Calgar and reinforcements arrives to turn the tide.
Lieutenant, I received your message. Brief me.
After regrouping with Captain Akran, Gadriel proposes a daring plan, which is to disable the smaller obelisks supporting the primary one, then they might be able to close the rift. While Calgar and the Ultramarines engages Amura's forces in fierce combat, Titus and his squad manages to disable each of the lesser obelisks, significantly weakening the warp rift. With the lesser obelisks neutralized, the Ultramarines began to force back the armies of Chaos. As the battle raged, Imura and the Lord of Change retreats through a portal into the Immaterium, casting a spell that immobilizes nearly all Ultramarines except for Calgar, Titus, Gadriel, and Chiron. Following the chapter master, Titus and his squad ventures into the warp, where they confront Imura and the Lord of Change. A brutal confrontation ensues, with the Ultramarines managing to drive the demon back as Imura attempts to harness Project Aurora's power source to gain forbidden warp knowledge. Seizing his chance, Titus claims the artifact as Imura was occupied with Calgar, reversing its polarity just as the sorcerer attempted to merge with its power. The reversal causes a massive psychic eruption, overwhelming Imura with more warp energy than he could control, which destroys him in a cataclysmic blast. The explosion disperses the demonic forces, securing victory for the Ultramarines and their Imperial allies.
Get up! All your service, all the suffering of humanity, the Demetrian Emperor. It's all for nothing!
When Titus awoke, he finds the remaining Ultramarines freed from Imura's spell. Back aboard the battle barge Resilience, Marnius Calgar commends Titus for his courage and invites him on a new mission. As Titus bids farewell to Gadriel and Chiron, he encounters Chaplain Quintus, who would also accompany Calgar on this next journey. Quintus commends Titus for proving his loyalty, yet he reminds him sternly of the constant threat of chaos. He cautions that should Titus ever stray from his devotion to the Emperor, he would not hesitate to deliver swift judgment. With that, Quintus removes his skull helm, revealing himself as none other than Brother Leandros, Titus' former protege from over a century ago, who had once fought beside him during the liberation of Graia. Leandros had been the one who reported Titus to the Inquisition due to Titus' unusual resistance to the warp's influence. After all these years, did Titus' vindication symbolize a redemption for them both, closing a long chapter of unresolved tension and loyalty? Leandros' final remarks says otherwise.